Our foolish illusion of intelligence makes us feel that we are greater than any other species in the world. We are so blind to the darkness of our own arrogance that we could not see other intelligent beings in our own planet. If I tell you there is a species which use mathematics, precisely vector algebra, to measure the distance and direction of their destination, and they use a democratic election system to take their vital decisions, will you believe me? Let me share their story with you. Around 12.4 crores years ago, a predator carnivore named stinging wasp evolved into a pollen-eating vegan insect called honeybee. Honeybees are one of the most hardworking animals in the world. They are the symbol of discipline, but they are not only physically active, they use their brain too. For centuries, the beekeepers and the naturalists had known that bees communicate the location of food sources to each other. But no one knew how until an Austrian zoologist named Carl von Frisch decoded their language. Carl von Frisch discovered that the bees use dance as their language of communication. He was the first to make the distinction between what he called circle dance and waggle dance. His experiment showed the bees use mathematics to convey the distance and location of their food sources. But unlike ours, their mathematical tools are their dances. The way they send the informations to one another will completely blow your mind. When a worker bee finds a food source, she comes back to the hive to convey the message to her fellow worker sisters. If the location is under 100 meters, the bee dances in a circular loop. And if the location is farther away, then she dances making a shape of English 8, which von Frisch named a waggle dance. Honeybees use the sun as their reference point. Their eyes can detect and polarize the sunlight. By this process, they determine the location of the sun and accurately measure the angle of the food source from the sun with respect to the hive. In hive, the up line, that means the direction away from the gravity, acts as the direction of the sun, and the bees use that line as 0 degree. The angle of dance gives the informations about the location. If a bee does waggle dance along the up line, then the food source is towards the sun. If she dances downward, then the location is opposite to the sun. That means 180 degree with sun. When the bee dances making 100 degree with the upline, you will understand that the food source is at 100 degree from the hive. But the sun is not stationary in the sky. In every 4 minutes, it moves 1 degree towards west. The internal body clock of the bees keep account of that and adjust the angle of location according to that. bees use time interval to quantify distance. In usual bee talk, 1 second of dance represents 1 kilometer. But it's not as simple as that. Bees don't have any concept of length like us. So they don't measure the distance by measuring length. Instead, they measure the amount of energy used by them to reach any destination, and the energy is used as distance. The wind speed is very crucial for the bees. If a bee is flying against the wind speed, she might use more energy than usual to cover 1 kilometer. So she will think the distance is more than 1 kilometer. Now she will dance more than 1 second to convey 1 kilometer. The bees are the living sun compass. Their internal body clock is so sensitive that it can sense the position of the sun even if the bee is inside dirt for a long time. Recently, the scientists are speculating that other information like shape, size and the quality of the flower, quantity of the nectar are also sent by the bees through the number of vibrations in 1 second of their dance. I think I have told you enough to rethink our own intelligence. The system which bees use is nothing but a simple form of vector algebra. Obviously, the real one is much more complicated than this system, but they don't need any complicated system for their purpose. Their system serves them the best. Carl von Frisch won the Nobel Prize for his findings in physiology in 1973, but the story doesn't end here. There are more to blow your mind. One of von Frisch's students, named Martin Linder, observed something totally different in the behavior of bees. In one fine spring day, he observed a swarm of bees hanging from a branch of a tree. He observed that some of the bees were dancing on the surface of the swarm. First he thought they were talking about the food, but by careful observation, he noticed a couple of things which did not seem right for him. Firstly, the bees were never returning with any food, and secondly, they were very dirty. Linders plucked one of the bees from the swarm and sniffed it. The smell was like chimney smoke. He is now sure about the fact that the bees were definitely not coming from a flower. He immediately speculated that the bees were talking about their hive location. I don't know about you, but if I meet an alien today, I will not be able to speak because I don't know how to speak alien language. But for Linders, the case was different. He knew the bee language, so he decoded the direction and the distance of the location the bees were trying to tell their friend, and then he followed them. He discovered that initially multiple bees dance for multiple sites, but before the swarm flies away, all the dances indicate one single site. So there must be a discussion about the site, and one decision is being taken by any process. Linders published his findings in 1949, but he could not develop his studies because he had nothing but a notebook, a pencil, a paint set for leveling bees, a wristwatch, a stopwatch, and a chair. These were his tools of experiment. With these tools, you could only study one bee at a time. You could not get any synoptic view about the bee behaviors. So the story of Linders stopped here. But his findings opened the door for the future scientists to know the bees better. Another biologist called Tom Seeley took the story where Linders stopped and developed it into a novel. He used a technology called video recording, which was becoming popular that time, to study the behavior of bee. His observations made him sure about the fact that the bees were definitely using some kind of democratic voting system to choose their home. A system which we humans are using only for few centuries, but they are using it for millions of years. If we really want to know the bee democracy, then we first need to understand how the bee voting system works. When the bees want to find a new home, they gather on a branch of a tree and then form a search committee of 300 to 500 most experienced bees. A perfect home for the bees should be higher than 15 feet from the ground, and the entrance should be 3 square meters or smaller. In this way, their home should be safe from the predator, and in winter, not much cold air would enter the cavity. When a bee from that searching committee finds such a cavity, she enters it, moves all around it, and finally exits it. She repeats this process almost 25 times to get the informations like volume of the cavity, size of the entrance, etc. I am sure you have definitely seen bees roaming around a cavity of a tree. Next time you see a bee doing this, remember that she has come to survey her apartment. When she is satisfied with her chosen cavity, she comes back to the swarm to make a public report about her chosen location through the waggle dance which we were talking about. This time, she conveys not only the address of the location but also the quality of the potential home she has inspected. But she is not the only one who is advertising. At least 9 of her friends have come with their own chosen location. All of them are dancing in 10 different choreographies. Now it's time for the other bees to vote for their favorite location. How do they do that? They don't have any voting machine to press, but I am telling you they have better system than us. They use their waggle dance to vote. If a bee likes someone's advertisement, she dances in the same rhythm the advertiser is dancing. At least 200 bees start dancing in 10 different rhythms. The bee voting booth has been turned into a wonderful dancing auditorium. A perfect example of dance of democracy. Now the swarm needs to choose one dance out of 10 dances. How does it do that? Here, the swarm acts like a single brain and use its collective intelligence. To achieve this kind of intelligence, one feature is very crucial, and that is honesty. The best part of bee democracy is their honesty of advertisement. If a bee thinks her site is very good, she advertises the location with a vibrant dance. But if she thinks her site is not that good, she conveys an weaker dance. They don't oversell their product because they know one single mistake could wipe out their whole swarm. This honesty of advertisement helps the other bees to make better decisions. As a result, more and more bees dance for the best site. So the interest for the best site grows on a collective level and fades for the poorer sites. At one point of time, the supporters of the bad site stop dancing. And this is a very good example of being humble and not being egoistic. At last, most of the bees start dancing in same rhythm, and by this process, one location is selected. But how do you know? Their voting system chose the best location for their home every time. Tom Selleck conducted an experiment. He took a swarm to an island with only 5 home locations. One of them was best according to the bees parameters, and the rest of the 4 were not that good. His experiment showed the swarm chose the best home 95% of the time. Today, when our democracy is so fragile and so vulnerable, where corrupted politicians are so common, and then there is an alien world in our simultaneous timeline, where a group of small creatures with much less complicated brain than us has been regularly celebrating a festival of democracy which is awarding them the best result almost every time.